Hi class, welcome to week 2 of our course. I'm Dr. Ondiak, not to be confused with this other guy on the screen, Plato. In week 1 we reviewed the different branches of philosophy and the definition of philosophy, but this week we're going to be moving into theories of philosophy, and this can be challenging at times to understand. The textbook and the videos that I've posted are meant to help you understand these theories, but you might still feel a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of information that you're presented with. So this PowerPoint is meant to help you understand the most important points and to help you prepare for the exam. You can only view this PowerPoint, obviously, after you've posted in the discussion. That's because I want to make sure that you're reading the text and trying to understand it on your own. But you can use this to help you study and also to help guide you on your responses in the discussion posts. Before we get into it, I should mention, however, that the PowerPoint doesn't cover all of the information on the exam. It just shows you the most important information. So after you're done watching it, review the points that we've talked about and go back and look at the assigned readings and videos to make sure that you understand these ideas clearly. And since these are the most important concepts, they should help you understand the other smaller concepts that you might be asked about on the exam. Before we can understand Plato's theories of forms, we need to know about a few philosophers that came before him. One of the first and most important questions asked by philosophers was, what is the ultimate reality? This is also the foundational question, as you know, of the philosophical branch of metaphysics. Early philosophers, so philosophers before Socrates and Plato, focused on what we call the ideal of simplicity. And this is basically just the desire to reduce everything to its simplest possible terms. So if you want to know about something complex, we're going to break it down and try to find the easiest answer. Using the ideal of simplicity led to one of the first philosophical theories, and that's called monism. Monism is the belief that reality is, in some sense, one. So it's unified. It's just one thing. And that's usually, when we say it's one, it means it's one in essence or nature. And these ideas are obviously on page 40 of your textbook, as you can see on the screen. We're not going to get into all of the different monist theories here because we don't have time. But there is a chart of the beliefs about reality, the different monist theories, and what that one reality is on page 42 of your textbook. So make sure you look at that and review it before taking the exam. Moving into chapter 2 and looking at a more important pre-Platonic theory for the idea about forms, is the idea that we talked about in our discussion question this week, and that's the idea of subjectivism or relativism. Early philosophers looked around the world and they saw that the world and the universe were constantly changing. Heraclitus, for example, noticed that you cannot step twice into the same river, and he determined that all things flow. This led to his belief, which we call Heraclitean flux. And this is the belief that nothing is universal or absolute. Everything is constantly changing. The philosopher Protagoras took this logic one step further, and he claimed that a man is the measure of all things. We call this belief Protagorean subjectivism, and this basically means that all reality is determined by the individual, that there's nothing absolute out there in the world. So we now have a definition of the term subjectivism, which you should have posted about in the discussion room. And the definition, according to our textbook authors, is that subjectivism is the belief that whatever you, the individual, perceive as true or false, and whatever you, the individual, think is good or bad, is actually good or bad, true or false. And this is known as relativism or subjectivism because it makes the most important things relative to and dependent on the individual or the community or the society. So sometimes we don't decide what's good or bad. The society decides what's good or bad for us. And we may, as many of you guys noted in your discussion points or discussion posts, believe that this idea of subjectivism is possible. There might be some truth to it when we're discussing morality. So what actions are good or bad? But Plato asked, is this idea of subjectivism really helpful when we're discussing reality? And that's what metaphysics does. So just because I believe something is real, does that actually make it real? So for example, if I see a shadow in my room and think it's a monster, is it really a monster? Hopefully not. And Plato's response is absolutely not. According to Plato, our understanding of being, truth, and goodness must be anchored in some objective, independent, and absolute reality. And that reality is objective in the sense that it exists outside of our own minds. It's independent in that it's not dependent on anything else for its existence. And it's absolute in the sense that it does not come or go or otherwise change. So you can see how Plato's answer to subjectivism says that we have to have some sort of absolute reality that does not change, even if everything in the world around us is changing. He believed that if all reality is constantly changing, then all discussion or discourse is impossible, and all knowledge is impossible because there is nothing universal or lasting that is worth knowing. This led to Plato's philosophy of there being two worlds. Yes, everything in our world is changing, but there has to be something absolute. And we know that that absolute thing is not located in our world, so it has to be located someplace else. So if everything in the universe is subject to change, then there must be a separate world of transcendent reality. And he called this transcendent world the world of being. And our world he calls the world of becoming. And when I say world, I mean the entire universe, everything physical that there is. And we're called the world of becoming because we have not reached the ideals that are present in the world of being. So understanding the world of being and the world of becoming is really essential to understanding Plato's philosophy and a lot of the philosophies that we'll talk about in the coming weeks. So make sure that you go back and look over these sections so you really are clear on everything. Central to this idea of there being two separate worlds is Plato's theory of forms, which you've done a lot of reading about and which will be a big part of your exam this week. According to Plato, forms are universal truths. They reside in the world of being, not in the world of becoming. So they reside someplace else, not here with us. And these forms are the cause of the particular items in the world of becoming. So we have lots of things here in our world, and the reason that they exist is because there is a form that exists for them in the world of being. This can be a little tricky to understand, and the video should help you with this. But the example from one of the videos is that in the world of becoming here with us, we have lots of types of friendship. I have close acquaintances, I have people that I've met once or twice, I have people that I work with, I have people that I've been friends with for hundreds, or not hundreds, but dozens of years. And there's lots of different types of friendship. However, in the world of being, there's only one type of friendship, and that's the ideal form of friendship. And all of our types of friendship, whether it's a really long friendship or a short friendship, close, they're just pale imitations of the form of friendship. And we are still becoming, since we haven't reached this ideal, because we have lots of different types of friendship, that means that we haven't reached the ideal form. Obviously, this is a quick and simplified version of Plato's theory of forms, and you'll want to look at some of the more important distinctions and aspects of forms before you take the exam. So in particular, make sure that you look at the 6 features of forms on page 60, that you understand the relationship between forms and particular objects in the world of becoming, that you understand the blending of forms, his concept of the divided line, the good, the analogy of the sun, and the allegory of the cave. And the page numbers are all here for you, and the allegory of the cave is really nicely illustrated in one of the videos for this week, so that should help you as well. But not everybody agreed with everything that Plato said. In fact, his own student Aristotle had some questions or critiques of some of the claims that Plato made. The main problem for Aristotle is the problem of charismos, which is a Greek word that means separation. So Plato believed that forms existed in a transcendent world that was separated from the things in our world, the world of becoming, that they're supposed to be the causes of. And so his question is, or Aristotle's question is, how can the forms cause something without being in the things themselves? And this leads to Aristotle's view of forms, which is slightly different from Plato's view of forms. He agrees with Plato that forms exist, but he disagrees with Plato about where the forms exist. He believes instead in hylomorphic composition, and this is a really complicated word that basically means that the form and the matter exist together. So the form, which is the essence of something, and the matter, which is the physical aspects of whatever, or of the thing, that's what's real. And everything in the natural world is composed of both form and matter. And there are no instances of unformed matter or unmattered form. So you have to have form and matter combined in the same object. And this is what we call the theory of immanent forms, which means that the form resides in the matter, as opposed to Plato's idea of transcendent forms that reside someplace else, what he calls the world of being. So for your exam, it's important that you understand the pre-Platonic theories, then understand Plato and his theory and how it's reacting to what the people before him said, and then understand also Aristotle's theory and understand how it relates to and is a reaction of Plato's theory. And some additional terms that we haven't covered here, but that you'll want to know, are listed in the Week 2 overview, but I'm going to present them here as well. In Chapter 2, in addition to the things that we talked about, you need to understand the problem of the one and the many, the Ionians, the Italians, the pluralists, the 2 Pythagorean views of how the world began, and cosmology. Some of these may be on the exam, but to a lesser extent than the things that we covered. And in Chapter 3, some of the ideas that you'll want to review are who is Parmenides and what does he say about all of this. You'll need to understand systematic philosophy, the idea of Platonic dialogue. You'll need to know what the Socratic problem is. You'll need to understand Aristotle's 4 causes and the definitions of teleology, what Occam's razor is, what realism, nominalism, and conceptualism are. So those are also smaller points that may be present on the exam. So to end, if you have questions about any of these ideas, please post them in the Week 2 discussion so we can talk about them together. And if you see other people having questions or asking questions, try to answer your classmates' questions for bonus response points. Just make sure that you're using the textbook or the videos to support your answer. And if somebody accidentally pops in with a wrong or incomplete answer, I will definitely add my voice into the discussion as well. So thank you for watching, and I will talk to you again next week and when we look at our next topic.